Welcome to Keep Going, a podcast about failure and success, hosted by John Biggs. Every week, we talk to an amazing person about a time they failed and what they learned. And remember, when you're going through hell, keep going.
Welcome back to Keep Going, a podcast about success and failure. I'm John Biggs. Today on the show, we have Evan Wray, CEO and co-founder of Mavely. Welcome, Evan.
Thanks, John. Happy to be here.
Yeah, so why don't you tell us a little bit about Mavely real quick, just so we have some context.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So Mavely, we call ourselves the everyday influencer platform. And basically the point of Mavely is we allow anyone who's approved with a social account to promote their favorite products and brands across social. So Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, whatever it is. And then anytime someone buys from your link, you earn commission and it really become like a side hustle for influencers. So we think that there is a place for the celebrity influencer and the private jet flying influencer, but we also think there's a massive market for what we call the everyday influencer, everyday people or more niche focused creators that are creating content that resonate and really promoting products they love. So that's what we empower. And we've been doing it for about 5 years. And we've powered over $1 billion in sales through our influencers. And the market keeps growing really fast. And we're excited to see what we're doing and giving everyone the opportunity to truly unlock their own influence.
Yeah, I should do that. I'll sell some self-help books and some like mushroom supplements or something.
Yeah, hey, do both, right? Go to joinme.com and check it out. Right. In all seriousness, though, I think creators are the future. Like stuff you're doing, John, is like the future of really the economy, but especially the digital economy. And like we're just trying to help creators find products they love and make a little bit of money off.
So tell us a little bit about your about the process building the business, some of the challenges you faced.
Yeah, I heard someone, I think Elon Musk says like eating glass, like being a startup founder is like kind of eating glass every day. I think was the comment. But yeah, no, I think for us, we've been fortunate enough. We've been around for 5 years. We've scaled tremendously. We're one of the leaders in the space. But frankly, for the first couple years, it was me and a couple co-founders in a room just trying to figure it out. And always the tough thing is like what you think is a good idea or what you think is there's a market for. You can have the best business plan in the world, the best approach in the world, and you go out in the world and then be like, yeah, I don't like this, or hey, this doesn't work, or I need the button to be red versus blue on your mobile app, right? Like, and it creates a lot of different things. So like for Mavely, as an example of this, and like the level of sometimes frustration that came with this is Mavely's initial name was My Favorite Things. Mm-hmm. And we thought it was a great name. We launched it. We started rolling it out. And then a whole bunch of people said, yeah, well, these aren't my favorite things. These are just things I like. Like if it's going to be my favorite things, I need a different list. I need a different UX. I need a different experience. And it's like, so these little tiny things over and over and over again add up. So we launched a mobile app that was more product centric versus brand centric. Didn't really work. Right. Mm-hmm. We had the wrong name initially. Didn't really work. Right. We tried brand specific ambassador programs connected through Shopify. Didn't really work. Right. So there was all these like initial roles and efforts and launches that we tried that ultimately didn't work. Right. We learned something from each one of those. And the other thing to say on this is like, so Mavely is me and my co-founder's second company. Our first company was a company called Swift Media, scaled, sold it to a public company. And so part of this is we came into this thing, oh yeah, we know what we're doing. Like we've done it before. We've had an exit before. We're really excited about it. So this second one should be easy. And it actually got, for me, it was actually personally like very, very difficult because I felt like we were doing the same things we did at my first company, but it wasn't working at Mavely, but it did work in the other business. So it just, that's part of it is like iterating and testing and being okay with failure, okay with people telling you your baby's ugly, okay with people getting, frankly, like, mad at the experience and frustrated at the experience. So that was a big one for us, but ultimately enough of those tweaks, enough of those, I call them like at bats. We had enough tests, we have enough iterations, we had enough feedback loops that we finally found the product market fit that works. And the beauty about product market fit is once you find it, especially if it's an industry that, kind of like ours, it's influencing, right? It's viral kind of by nature. Mm-hmm. it just takes off, right? And I think that's one of the things that, we were excited to see. So if you look at our revenue or our user growth and our employee growth and like any metric you want to look at, it looks like we basically skyrocketed over the last 3 years. But there's like this, 2.5 year beginning that was just awful and flatline and not figuring it out and getting frustrated and thinking about quitting and all this different stuff. So it's interesting as you look at these things in retrospect, how it shapes the business.
What made you continue? I mean, obviously 2.5 years is a long time. There's a lot of cash being burnt there, presumably. What made you want to continue this idea versus basically just hang it up? Because I mean, again, once being lucky and selling is great, but getting it twice that's like getting hit by lightning.
Yeah. So I think there's a couple things. I think so something so for me, I think there was an element of exactly what you just said. Is I didn't want to. I basically kind of wanted to prove to myself and the world that I wasn't just lucky the first time. And so there was this like really, really deep fear of failure, which is ironic because you actually you don't want fear of failure as an entrepreneur. Because otherwise you don't try things and you kind of like sell yourself short. At least for me, it was like a pretty deep fear of failure of saying like, candidly, like going from a situation where, I was 25 when I sold my first business, and it was an awesome outcome for everyone. It was like rah, exciting, like, great startup founder thing. And then if I failed on the second one, it's like, oh, that was just luck. Right. And so there was a lot of pressure I put on myself personally that was just saying like, okay, like I need to make this successful. Right. Otherwise, like, was the first one just, happened to be lucky. And I think that was an interesting time for me because, and my co-founder felt it too, because I think it's a bit of a, it's sort of like look yourself in the mirror and say like, is there an insecurity here? Is like, why do you care what other people think? Like why, like there's a lot of that comes out in this, at least for me in this process. And just trying to lean into that and see like, okay, like it's a competitive advantage because I'm going to work really hard, but there's also, if you're not careful, it can start to look like I think a lot of entrepreneurs can get like defined by the business they're building, good and bad. Right? If it goes up and it's great, you're happy. But if it crashes, like your self-worth crashes. And I think that's just like a really delicate line for entrepreneurs generally. And I was definitely flirting with it.
Yeah. How did you manage the mental aspect of that, especially for those 2 years?
Yeah. So there was a little bit of an anxiety there for sure. Honestly, the biggest thing was for me personally, there's been a couple things. I think one, having great partners and great co-founder around you and like a support group is key. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs don't do that. Like one of the first things that I do in any company I start is I set up an advisory board. And the point of that is to really be able to have people who have gone through it before that are a phone call or a text away to say, hey, I'm thinking about this thing, or I'm feeling this thing, or this isn't working at all. And just have someone to, sometimes give you advice and like help you avoid speed bumps. But a lot of times say, yeah, we went through that too. Right. And it's just part of it. And like, here's how you think about it. Here's how I solved it. So I think the advisory group was huge. And then I think, for me, a lot of the co-founder dynamics. So me and Sean, Sean's my co-founder. He's the CTO. And we were actually roommates in college. So we started as friends and then ultimately became business partners. And so we get each other, and we're like a bit of a yin and yang in terms of he's an engineer. He's a little bit more even keel, whereas I'm more of like strategy, marketing, visionary guy. So I kind of can go like this a bit. And I think just having that interplay between the two of us is huge. So having a partner you trust to be able to bounce that off was critical. And then the last thing that for me is like, so basically it was a really good, one of the things that helped me a lot was starting to look at this and say like, why do I actually care what other people are thinking about like success or not? And then that made me start to think about, okay, what is success for me, and like what is that defined as, and how does that work? And so just, it was kind of a tough spot for me, but it was also like a really nice diving a little bit deeper and coming out the other side a lot stronger. So for me, that was like really, really great to see, like, okay, why do I care about this at all? Right. Which is helpful.
Why do you care about what others are thinking? Right. That's the idea.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So it's like there's, I think especially in today's age with, you get a TechCrunch article on so-and-so just raised this amount of money, or you're on your LinkedIn feed and everyone is hiring and everyone is selling and everyone is raising money and everyone's launching the new thing and everyone like it's like you're getting peppered with everyone's best and greatest professional accomplishments, right?
Yep.
And if you haven't had one in a little bit, right? And you're for my case, I was in my second company and I was like, man, this isn't really working. But like, so there's this element, right? There's this pressure. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs don't talk about that enough. I think they kind of like bury that down, and then it can lead to a lot of, stress, a lot of insecurity, a lot of negative stuff that ultimately makes you not likely to succeed in the business, which was just kind of the whole irony of this thing.
If you're just starting out, how do you find like a board, like a board of advisors?
Yeah, it's a great question. So what I did is I just leaned on people that, right. So I think naturally, like even before companies, everyone should have mentors, like period. Right. And the way you can find mentors, you can just reach out to someone on LinkedIn or email or text or, whatever it is, and just say, hey, I'm newer in my career, or I'm newer in this industry, or I'm newer as an entrepreneur, whatever it is. And I respect what you're doing. And I'd love to buy you a digital coffee and like learn a little bit more about like how you did what you did. Right. So for me, it's that I call it like the digital coffee conversation is the way to do it. And that can just start like having conversations, right? And then inevitably in those conversations, there's going to be people you're going to connect with more versus not. So for me, it happened to be really there was a couple folks. It was one guy I met at university at Notre Dame. He was at the Idea Center. He was an entrepreneur. Had started and exited a couple businesses. Literally, I got coffee with him. We kind of hit it off. I stayed in touch with him. I asked him a few questions about my first company as we were starting, and then he's been an advisor, still is an advisor to this day, a decade later, right? Another guy was he's actually the guy who led the deal of our first company, and then I worked with him for a bunch of years and became like close to him. He knows how I think. He knows how I operate. I asked him, hey, you want to be an advisor, right? So like surrounding yourself with people who are going to, you look out for the company, but also like look out for you as a founder.
Oh, interesting.
And like help you guide, yourself as a leader, right? Or as a decision maker, because companies will formalize boards, usually with investors and everything like that, which is great, and that's needed, and that's really, really important for checks and balances and everything. What I'm more talking about is like more of the founder advisory circle, right? And like who can you talk to, and who can you really share these things? Like, hey, I need to tell my board bad news, or hey, I need to tell my board good news. Like, how do you position it? How do you work together? And that's the group that I think is lacking for a lot of founders. And so thinking about who do you trust, who do you resonate with, building those connections early and often. And then you don't have to like take everyone along for the ride, right? If someone doesn't work for you or doesn't, you don't jive with, just say, hey, great to meet you, wonderful coffee, and then let's just stay in touch. But you don't have to push it forward. I think what founders should do more often is like formalize their advisory boards and like hold regular cadence of quarterly meetings on the advisory boards. Because it's easy to the more you formalize it, the more committed advisors are, and B, like the more accountability it provides to the founder. Mm-hmm. And I think this is something that, again, personally has helped me a ton. Every company I've ever done, I've had an advisory board. I even have like a personal advisory board outside of companies, right?
Okay.
So like just like for life, and I think, and it's it's kind of like, oh, it's kind of funny, it's kind of goofy, but it's also like insanely unlocking in a lot of aspects of my life. So not enough people ask for help is maybe the long and short of it, John.
Yeah, I think that might be the answer. All right, well, we'll send folks over to Mavely. So, like I said, I'm going to hop on there and become a become a paid influencer. Is that going to work for me?
Yeah, you can do it for sure. It's we've got 120,000 creators and influencers on Mavely. We've got 1,400 brands on Mavely. And the brands are always looking for great people to connect with and do paid campaigns, but also do like just sharing links on, what, like the headphones you're wearing right now, right? Probably can get them at one of our retailers. So say, hey, these are my favorite headphones. Boom, here's the link. Someone buys from it. You make 10, 15% off that sale, right? So it's a pretty cool setup, pretty simple. And frankly, we're just trying to do, we like to say, like, we're trying to do what Uber did for everyone with a car. We're trying to do for everyone with a social account.
So it's joinmavely.com, Mavely.
You got it.
Yeah, thank you, Evan. This has been cool.
Yeah, likewise, John. Appreciate you guys doing this. It's really cool.
All right. This has been Keep Going, a podcast about success and failure. I'm John Biggs. We'll see you next week. Thank you for listening to Keep Going, a podcast about success and failure. Remember, Keep Going is entirely listener supported. If you're listening to this, please head over to keepgoingpod.com, where you can subscribe to the podcast for as little as $5 a month. This is a labor of love, and every little bit helps. Thanks for listening.